if this happens, then there will be a great victory in the Blessed Virgin Mary. And the Blessed Virgin Mary, and there will be peace throughout the entire world. So therefore, the Immaculate Heart of Mary is not a secondary feast. It's a primary feast. And today, when Pius XII established this feast in the 1940s or 1950s, he made it a second-class feast, not a primary feast. And it is only the conclusion of the octave of the Assumption. And also, on May the 13th, 1917, Father Pacelli was consecrated a bishop, and he would later become the Pope Pius XII. When he became Pope, he found out that the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared on May the 13th, 1917, the very day that he was consecrated a bishop. And he himself knew if Our Lady decided to appear in Portugal on the very same day that I was consecrated a bishop in Italy, when I had no way of knowing. He had no idea that Our Lady was in Fatima. He had no idea about the apparitions of Fatima. It was just that on that particular day, he was consecrated a bishop. And he knew that it was a sign from heaven. And he was the first Pope to call himself the Pope of Fatima, Pope Pius XII. That I am the Pope of Fatima. I was consecrated a bishop on the very day in which the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared in Fatima. And while he called himself the Pope of Fatima, he disobeyed the Blessed Virgin Mary. Pope Pius XII did not obey Mary. And not only that, he brought down upon himself, because of that, a curse. Because the Blessed Virgin Mary said in 1929, and our Lord Jesus Christ repeated, you must tell the Pope, at that time Pius XI, tell the Pope that he must consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and do not delay. Do not delay. If you delay, there will be grave consequences. And we are seeing those grave consequences now. 1929, 39, 10 years later, World War II breaks out. 49, 59, and the 1960s, Vatican II. 79, 89, the 1980s, the great sacrilege of Assisi, by which the Pope united all the world religions to worship together in the very place of St. Francis. 99, 2009, now 2016. Almost 100 years. In 13 more years, we will be 100 years late. 87 years ago, the Blessed Virgin Mary said to the Pope, consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, or there will be grave consequences for the world. Ever since the refusal to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary by the Pope in 1929, and the continued refusal in 1930, and 1931, and 1932, and 1933, all the way until 2016, we now have popes that have disobeyed Mary for 87 consecutive years. 87 years. We say the trouble in the world is that John the 23rd was the first bad pope. No, he was not. He was not the first pope to disobey heaven. Neither was Pius XI. Many popes have disobeyed heaven. Some of them with wickedness, others with fear. Pius XII may not have been wicked, but he was filled with fear. And he did not want to offend the communists. He even wrote, even though there was an encyclical written by Pius XI against the communists, he did not obey Mary. The way that he placated his conscience was he wrote an encyclical. When the Blessed Virgin Mary said, okay, encyclical is good, but you must consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Pius XI wrote an encyclical. Pius XII did a consecration of the world. He did a private consecration of Russia. And they each, and even John Paul II, tried his own private consecration, or his consecration of the world. Each of them trying to find some way to placate their consciences. They were supposed to obey Mary. They were supposed to obey heaven, and they did not. They did not. Meanwhile, each of these popes, during the last 87 years, has seen the Catholic Church go down and down and down and down. Each of these popes in the last 87 years has seen the wickedness of the world grow and grow and grow. Some of them were very active in the wickedness, such as Paul VI and Benedict XVI and Pope Francis and Pope John Paul II, who witnessed the greatest exodus from the Catholic Church in the history of the world. Each pope has something special to say about themselves against God. Pius XII, who called himself the Pope of Fatima, disobeyed heaven. He did not obey heaven. He thought that he could find a better way. He thought he could find another way than the way of Mary. There is no other way. And he has the name of being a very good and holy pope, because when we compare Pope Pius XII to John the 23rd, he looks like a saint. And when you compare Pope Pius XII to Pope Francis, he looks like an angel. He is the greatest there ever was. But God does not compare the saints with the saints. He compares them with their duties. And Pius XII was given one duty by heaven: consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in union with all the bishops throughout the entire world. And he did not do it. Certainly there were many forces that were against the Pope. There were many forces, and there were many, many temptations. But God never gives a command without giving the grace to fulfill the command. He never does that. Therefore, we know with an infallible certitude, God told through the Blessed Virgin Mary and Sister Lucy at Fatima, God told Pope Pius XII to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Therefore, God gave the necessary grace for the Pope to obey heaven. And the Pope did not obey heaven. And he had a guilty conscience. So what did he do? He did several things. One of them was to establish this feast. You see, I still love Mary because I made the feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. He used to have in a church in Colorado, in Denver. We had a neighbor who lived right next to our church, about a little bit further than that edge of that building. So he lived about a good 25 meters away from church, by quite a distance. I used to talk to him and he said, "You know, Father, I never go to church, but I'm not worried about going to hell when I die." He did ride a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. He liked his Harley. He said, "But you know that whenever you're boys," because we were in the middle of the city, and there was a field about the size of this, how wide is from that concrete wall to the other concrete wall, and it was the biggest field in the entire area of the city. All the boys would come and play soccer there, or football, or kickball, or dodgeball. And very many times the ball would hit his house. Very many times the ball would hit his window. Sometimes it broke his window. Very many times the ball would go over the fence. And he says, "You know, Father, I've never complained. Not even once." I said, "Okay, why did you not complain?" "Because I know that when I die, God's going to say, 'Why didn't you go to church?' And I've got the answer." "Well, what's the answer?" "I live next to a church." "Okay. Is that the same as going to church?" "No, well, maybe not. But those boys used to kick the ball into the window, and I never complained. And I would throw the ball back. So I know I'm going to go to heaven because I lived next to a church that I never went to, and I didn't complain when the boys threw the ball against the window." Now, if you check the 10 Commandments, you might look at the 3rd commandment. And did God write on the tablet, "Don't complain when boys hit balls against windows"? That's not one of the 10 Commandments. It doesn't say don't complain when boys hit balls against windows. The commandment says, keep holy the Lord's day. That's the commandment. And if you don't fulfill the commandment, you go to hell. Harley Davidson and all. Unless the man repents, he cannot save his soul. So likewise, God asked the Pope Pius XII, consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, he wrote beautiful encyclicals, some bad ones, some with grave imperfections in them, some good. He tried to fight against communism. He did many good things. But heaven asked one thing of him, and he did not do it. He was the head of our holy church, and during his reign, he was supposed to obey heaven. And one of the things that he did to cover his conscience was to make this feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The Immaculate Heart is going to triumph, but it will triumph in her way. It will triumph when she has souls on earth that will obey her will. She made it very clear what is necessary in order to conquer the heresy and the evil and the error of communism. In order to destroy communism, we have to have the love of the Immaculate Heart of Mary in our hearts. And the Pope must consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and we must make reparation for the sins committed on this earth, especially the sin of not keeping Sunday holy. There are many sins, but the one mentioned by Our Lady, not keeping Sunday holy. On Sunday, it's the main shopping day. On Sunday, it's the main sports day. On Sunday, it's a day of sleeping in. It is not the day of God anymore. And God is angry. He's angry at the violation of all 10 of His commandments. But the one specifically mentioned is the violation of the Sundays. And many people are holy. Because, like some of them told me, I know I'm a good Catholic father because I go to Mass every Easter and every Christmas. That's not good enough. We must live and love our faith. We must obey the commands of heaven. Faith must be the center of our lives. Today we have the feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and her heart is most immaculate. But she did not ask for this feast. She asked for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And now, a few years ago, Putin, the wicked man that rules in Russia, visited Rome. And he spoke with Pope Francis, and he said, will you consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary? The communist wicked man asked the Holy Father, will you consecrate Russia? And the Holy Father responded, we don't speak of Fatima. We don't speak of Fatima. And the Holy Father refused. We're in a backwards world. The communist is supposed to be afraid of the consecration of Russia, since that will be the end of his communism. And yet, things are getting so wicked that the wicked men have more clear minds than the good ones. The wicked men see more clearly than the good men see. We are in a most wicked age, but the answer has already been given by heaven. Already. Consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Stand firm with the Holy Roman Catholic faith. Remember what our Lord said, will there be any faith left when I return? He did not say, will there be any masses left? Will there be any Holy Communions left? Will there be any baptisms left? Will there be any confirmations left? Will there be any churches left? This is not what Jesus Christ said. He said, will there be any faith left when I return? We must hold the faith. Whole and entire. We must hold the faith. The faith is that without which it is impossible to please God. So says sacred scripture. Without the faith, it is impossible to please God. Open your eyes and see the nice Protestants doing works of charity. The nice atheists doing works of charity. Bill Gates being such a man of generosity that he's paying billions of dollars to help women on earth practice abortion and birth control. A great man of charity in order to help souls go to hell. This charity is not pleasing to God. It is not. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. I want to please God in this great time of crisis in the church. You want to please God in this time of great crisis in the church. This means we must hold the faith, hold on to it. Like holding on to a life buoy in the water. We just hold on and never let go, and we will not drown. We will not drown. It was one of these life vests. We were on a small boat coming from Ubai yesterday. Coming from going to Ubai a couple days ago from what was this place called? From Bato. And they had a life vest. They told me to take a life vest. It had styrofoam about the size of my hand. So if I put that life vest on and I drop in the water, I'll sink faster than if I didn't have it on. So they give me this life vest. You've got to be kidding. This life vest with a styrofoam the size of my hand is going to hold up the tugboat Padre. Ain't going to happen. It is not going to happen. I just hope the boat doesn't sink, because that life vest, or 3 or 4 of them together, aren't going to work. There's only one life vest that works in the sea of sin. There's only one life vest that will keep you afloat, and that is the faith. The faith. Therefore, we must hold very firmly to our Holy Roman Catholic faith. And the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. What is she the mother of? The Word. Only one word. She is the mother of the truth. She is the mother of the life. She is the mother of the way. She is the mother of the breath of the Father and the Son. She is the mother of God. And as the mother of God, that she is the mother of unity, the mother of faith, the mother of Christ. She is the mother of God. And therefore she does not want there to be a partial faith inside of us. How can we be faithful children of the Blessed Virgin Mary unless we have the whole faith? Therefore we must reject modernism completely. We must reject evolution completely. We must reject communism completely. We must reject the new Mass and Vatican II completely. These things are straight from hell. They are the gifts of the devil, and we are not grateful for the gifts of the devil. Let him take his gifts with him back to hell. We hold firmly to the Holy Roman Catholic faith, whole and entire. And when our Lord Jesus Christ said, "Will there be any faith left when I return?" we know that it was a rhetorical question. In other words, we know that there will be faith when he returns. But the reason why he said that was to emphasize to us that there will be very few souls in the world who still keep the faith. How can we be amongst those few souls that keep the faith? Only if the Blessed Virgin Mary holds us tight in her arms. You see, we're past the time of holding on to the mantle. We're past that time. If you're in a great storm and you hold on to the dress of your mother, the storm will blow you away. But if the mother holds you in your arms, let the bombs come. Let the nuclear blasts come. Let anything come, and we will never fall out of her arms. We are past the time of just holding on to the hand of our mother. We're past the time of holding on to her dress. We must be inside of her arms. Unless she holds on to us, we cannot make it through this great tribulation. We have held on to her, but we must beg that she holds on to us. If she holds on to us, we cannot fail. If we hold on to her, one day we may lose our grip. Let us ask the Blessed Virgin Mary Mary, my mother, be my mother. Hold on to me. Hold me in your arms as you held our Lord Jesus Christ in your arms. And never let go. And make sure that I am protected in this great storm of this modern world. The very Pope, Pius XII. Look at the popes. Pius XI, number 1. Pius XII. John the 23rd. Paul the 6th. John Paul the 1st. John Paul the 2nd. That's 6 popes. Pope Benedict, 7 popes. Pope Francis, 8 popes. 8 popes that have in succession decided to disobey God over the last 87 years. And each of them has added disobedience to disobedience to disobedience. And this is going to bring down the wrath of God. 87 years of directly disobeying the most simple command of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And this command must be fulfilled. And Our Lady did tell Sister Lucy, it will be fulfilled, but late. Russia will be consecrated according to my wishes, but late. We are now 87 years late. It will come. But in the meantime, we hold the faith. We hold the faith whole. We hold the faith entire. We reject the enemies of God. We reject the modern world. We reject the modernism. We hold to the faith. We stay faithful. And remember, we have a great example in our society of St. Pius X. We have Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. He was the great saint of the 20th century after St. Pius X. And Archbishop Lefebvre gave us the answer to this crisis in the church in which we are. He gave us the answer. Hold firm to the faith. Don't worry about the punishments of the authorities. Don't worry about their empty words. Hold firm to the faith. And bring Christ everywhere. Bring Christ all over the world. Respond to the call of the faith. Repeat the teaching of St. Athanasius. Let them have the churches.